The answer lies in the heart of battle.
King of Iron Fist Tournament.
Mugen TV versus Corner.
Welcome to the stage of history retold.
Hey guys, it's MugenLord here, and before we begin with today's topic, if you haven't checked out my last video where I talked about being garbage at fighting games, has pretty much pushed me back into playing JRPGs once again. If you haven't checked out that video, definitely check it out. I had fun putting it together, and I discovered that there's a lot of you guys who have experienced the same thing I have experienced when it comes to fighting games, and I appreciate that. So check it out. Definitely like to hear your thoughts. So today I want to talk about Marvel vs. Capcom. Will Marvel vs. Capcom series ever make a comeback? And it's been on my mind for the past couple of days. It's because I truly miss Marvel vs. Capcom. It was one of the best versus series, or one of the versus series that had inspired many crossovers, not just fighting games, but just other games and genres, where it just takes two different companies from the East and the West, or just two unlikely companies that you would never ever thought would ever be in one game, and it just so happened to work out, and fans just grew to just love it and adore it, and it just became a game that's just changed the entire genre moving forward in the gaming industry. And it's been about like 5 years since we've seen Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, since that was the most recent release from the series. And I just want to talk a bit about that and how that could possibly somehow tarnish the reputation for the series, or with how it would factor into whether or not we'll see a return or a resurgence to Marvel vs. Capcom. Now, I remember when Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite first debuted, I believe it's back in 2017, I believe. And I remember I was out clothes shopping with my daughter for the fall, or going into the next year actually. And I remember I got a phone call from my brother saying that, yo, Capcom just made an announcement, you need to go check it out. And I believe it was after the Capcom Cup. And I went to look at the trailer, and for some reason, I just knew it had to be Marvel vs. Capcom. Now, I know there was rumors that was talking about a potential Marvel vs. Capcom game in the works, but a lot of people said it was fake. You know, it's been debunked and everything. But the fact is to see Mega Man X making an appearance, which is a Mega Man that most Mega Man fans and just Capcom fans in general wanted to see making an appearance in a Marvel vs. Capcom title, since we've been teased, you know, with X being DLC costume for Zero in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and the fact is that they trolled us in the Days of Future Past stage with having Mega Man in the Most Wanted poster. So it was about time that he deserved to have his appearance in Marvel vs. Capcom moving forward. And after we seen that, once we saw Iron Man, and we saw Ryu, and then we saw Miss Marvel or Captain Marvel making an appearance, it was like, yep, this is Marvel vs. Capcom. And I was just so hyped for it. Just like, you understand, I like, yo, I need to have this game. Marvel vs. Capcom is back, baby. Sign me up. I can't wait to get my hands on this game. And then hype kind of died just a little bit. I wouldn't say died, but people started getting a little worried once we actually seen some gameplay and how the visuals look. It's more so the visuals, but not the gameplay. But many people started seeing that, hey, you know, some of these character models look kind of janky, and it seemed like they just ripped a lot of the gameplay from Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and just tweaked it a bit. This game kind of seemed like it's been Frankenstein just a little bit, so people started just getting a little worried about it. And then it wasn't until later on in the promotions we started, you know, seeing some of the characters that's being revealed for the game. Now, the best thing about Marvel vs. Capcom and these crossovers, and the biggest draw to this, is the characters itself. You know, when every time a new crossover game, especially when it comes to Capcom and the Marvel vs. Capcom series, everyone always speculate what characters could potentially appear in a Marvel vs. Capcom game. And now that so many years has passed from Marvel vs. Capcom 2 to MVC 3, and now we on to Infinite, there's a just huge roster of potential characters that may appear in this game, and that's where the potential lied. And I think everybody had, you know, raised so much of the expectations after, you know, not seeing Marvel vs. Capcom after MVC 3 after so many years. So we were hoping that, hey, maybe we'll see some characters return that we expected to make an appearance in 3 but haven't. Maybe we'll see the X-Men return. You know, my favorite character, of course, was Cyclops. You know, Jin Saitome from the Capcom side. You know, so I was hoping to see some new characters from Power Stone to make some representation. Maybe Breath of Fire. So it was just there. Like, everybody was just glued to the screen trying to dig up any information they can possibly get when it comes to any leaks concerning characters and everything. And that's when we finally got hit with a reality pill that some of these characters won't be making a return. More specifically, X-Men characters, as the game started revealing itself with its roster. And that's where the disappointment definitely started settling in, because we started missing some of the most iconic characters that's known within the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise, and that was such a bummer. And even though that Capcom can't really control much of what characters they can pull from the Marvel side, because Marvel really makes the decisions of what characters can possibly be in. And to Marvel, of course, this is more like a marketing tool to promote some of their upcoming projects, especially within the MCU. Especially the MCU was really big at the time, because we headed into, you know, Avengers Infinity War, eventually into Endgame. So they really want to push that storyline. They also want to push those characters for these upcoming projects. So people kind of expected that we'll see some MCU, but we didn't know that the MCU was going to have such a big influence over Marvel vs. Capcom in general when it comes to just the roster and also the story that's being, you know, played in this. So that really upset the fans as well. And some of the character choices for the Capcom side was also just didn't make sense of why they chose some characters and left some characters out. It was just mind-boggling why they would do that. And then what hurt even more was the fact is that once they revealed Chun-Li, they revealed Dante, and just how some of the character models was just downright ugly, which the fans really made memes about and really just criticized Capcom over, to the point where Capcom tried to go in and actually just try to fix up some of the character models. And, you know, it did an okay job, but it still wasn't to the quality that we're used to since Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And then we got introduced to the story mode. The story mode was something just like unforgettable. It was just a mess. It was just all over the place. And Capcom really dropped the ball on their side, because they have actual control over what characters they can actually put to represent Capcom. And why? What happened to Power Stone? I mean, the story mode actually revolves around the Infinity Stones, and Power Stone would have been perfect to place in the game. And there was rumors and talks to why Falcon from Power Stone didn't make it in the game, because they actually wanted Falcon to actually be in the game, but from the Marvel side, and they didn't want to conflate or confuse the normies or something like that between Falcon from Capcom and then Falcon from the Marvel side. So there was a lot of debates as far as that's concerned, but overall it was a rush product, and it seemed like that Marvel really wanted to actually have this game out there to just promote the MCU rather than actually creating a game for, you know, the fans that's been following the series for such a long time, fans like me who love Marvel vs. Capcom. And then the game just had bad promotion surrounding it, especially when Combo Fiend had that infamous interview that eventually became a meme, where he said that, you know, people ask how come the X-Men characters are not in there, you know, more specifically to give an example, Magneto. And then he just turned around and said, you know, even though Magneto's not in the game, these characters are just functions, you know, they just do things, they just do stuff. So we can just take those functions and just apply those functions to other characters. So if Magneto's not in the game, it may be another character that may play as like Magneto. So it was just they were just so out of touch from his fan base, you know. They just didn't understand what they were saying and what they were doing. And you can tell that Combo Fiend was just put under pressure to even answer a question like that, you know. And you can see that he was trying to dip and dodge that, and it was just so bad. And then you had people within the community, within the FGC, calling each other shills for the game because people was criticizing the game. Then you have other players who had early access and hands-on with the game who was, you know, saying that they loved the game, and then people were calling them shills. it was just a horrible mess, and the game even haven't even just released yet. And I even created a video talking about all of it, and it was just, oh man, it was just a sad thing to even see, and a sad thing to even hear. But despite how bad the game and its promotion came to be, the game overall had some fun aspects. I'm not going to sit there and lie to you guys. A female friend of mine had bought the game for me as a surprise. She ended up buying the game for me. I ended up getting the game, and from what I played, I liked the mechanic that they added to where you're allowed to tag in your character off of any type of scenario. So it pretty much created a lot of character or player creativity, and players able to come up with their own kind of combos. And yes, there could be some busted scenarios or busted situations, but the fact is that you were able to just tag off of anything. Really made the game fun. It kept the game interesting. You didn't never know what to expect, what players were able to pull off, and especially it still had its hype moments even during the little time that it had on the big stage in the competitive scene, you know, at one time, you know. So I give credit for that. And I used Gamora, I had used Ryu, also Captain Marvel, and Mega Man X as well. They were more so my mains in the game because, like I said, the roster selection of characters was just so lackluster. And another thing I did like and I appreciate, they brought it back to 2v2. I think 2v2 was much better than 3v3. 3v3 made the game too chaotic for me. And not just that, most people never really used their third character. The third character was more so just the assist. You just keep constantly spamming assist with the third character. Normally the third character is not really the person's strongest characters at times. So with the 2v2, you just had to focus on just your two characters that you're potentially good at. And then they also added the Infinity Stone mechanic. Infinity Stone mechanic acted as this third character that's in place and everything, which I didn't find anything wrong with that. I think it was a different, unique twist that they used. And also it kind of reminded me of the Marvel superheroes game that was made back in the old days in the early 90s in the arcades, which I thought was pretty cool. But due to its somewhat bad performance into, I guess you could say, the standards that a Marvel vs. Capcom is supposed to bring in, how would this affect the game's chances of making a return, the series overall? And the thing is, the series name has a lot of recognitions to it, and I think the name alone should make developers think about, hey, you know, yeah, we screwed up this time, you know, maybe we should go back to the game. Because at this point, we haven't heard anything from Marvel vs. Capcom, and since then, Disney/Marvel had pretty much licensed their games to other companies. You know, it was Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics with the Avengers, which is also trash and bombed. Then of course, Ninja Theory, or not Ninja Theory, I mean Team Ninja, had came together with Nintendo and Disney Marvel to create Marvel Alliance 3, which I've also did a video on. You can definitely check that out if you're interested in wanting to know how that game had done. And then also they also have a mobile game that's actually doing really good, that I believe Chinese developers have made for the game, for the mobile devices. That's everybody seemed to be playing and enjoying. So there's a lot of, you know, other companies that's been using the Disney/Marvel brand with the licensing and everything. So what does that mean for Capcom? Will Capcom ever decide to go back or talk to Marvel about doing another Marvel vs. Capcom? It doesn't seem to look like that Marvel vs. Capcom, or Marvel and Capcom, has a bad relationship with one another, because they still come together and allow Arcade 1-Up to do Marvel vs. Capcom machines, or just Marvel machines in general. Because if you haven't checked out in the background of most of my videos, you see my Marvel vs. Capcom Arcade 1-Up cabinet, which I love to death, has online play and everything. I can actually make a video about that, talking about that. And I also bought some new Samba buttons and parts that I'll do a video later on sometime this year to actually mod into my arcade. But it still shows that there is a relationship that Marvel and Capcom still has with one another, because in order for those cabinets to even be made in the first place, Marvel has to sign off on it and Capcom has to sign off on it. So for Arcade 1-Up to even able to make those machines, it still showed that there's still somewhat of a relationship that both companies have. So if they're able to do those cabinets, I don't see why they wouldn't be able to get together and to actually make a new Marvel vs. Capcom game. Like I said before, it's been over 5 years. I think it's about time that we could give, you know, Marvel vs. Capcom another try again, because the fans don't hate the franchise at all. We love Marvel vs. Capcom. I just think that with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, it shouldn't take that one game to just say, hey, I think we're done with this. But I just think that the game Marvel vs. Capcom, just the developers need more time. It shouldn't be a rush product, and it needs to be held with the most care as much as possible. And also, you know, one of the original creators of Marvel vs. Capcom, especially the one Natsuma, who worked on Marvel vs. Capcom 3, he been retired away from creating fighting games and just moved on to other things. But I like to see what another team would do and how they would bring it all together, and what a new Marvel vs. Capcom game would actually look like. You know, Arc System Works has done a great job with their character models. It has that 2D, but yet this 3D type of 3D environments that they have with their art style. I would definitely love to see a Marvel vs. Capcom game use a style that's somewhat similar, you know, to what Arc System has done with their games. I think that would be a great direction for them to go, rather than going back to the comic book look or going to the much more realistic 3D model look and everything. But having a unique art style that could just stand the test of time and be appealing to bring in newcomers to the series will definitely be awesome. But other than that, man, like, that's pretty much it. I've been really thinking about Marvel vs. Capcom lately, and I definitely want to hear your thoughts. And what do you think, you know, what Marvel and Capcom should do regarding the series? Do you think they should give another crack at it? And if they do decide to do that, what potential characters would you love to see to represent both Capcom and also Marvel as well? I definitely want to hear your thoughts. So if you like the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, because it really helps me out in the algorithm. And if you want to stay up to date with more news regarding fighting games, hit that bell to be notified. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you Game Fiends later. Peace out.